Connecticut and Massachusetts, Z&M Homes buys houses. Sell your property to the local guys.
Needs repairs, updates, maybe foreclosure or inherited? No problem. We gotcha. Google or add us on Facebook at ZANDMHomes.com.
It's Backsea's Musical Podcast.
Throughout David Bowie's career, he was always known as a man who would never shy away from a good collaboration. We're all aware of the results of those collaborative efforts, whether it's with Brian Eno or Mick Ronson or Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, Mott the Hoople, the guys from Queen, or John Lennon or Mick Jagger, or even Bing Crosby. But there are some other very important figures that need to be mentioned as well. And if you were going to point out David Bowie's number one collaborator, then it better damn well be Carlos Alomar. From 1974 until the early 2000s, Carlos Alomar was not only David Bowie's rhythm guitar player, he was David Bowie's musical director, playing on 11 albums, the most of any other musician in Bowie's entire catalog. From midway through the Diamond Dogs tour to Young Americans, Station to Station, the entire Berlin trilogy, right up until Bowie's 2003 album Reality, Carlos Alomar was almost a constant presence in David Bowie's career, collaborating on arrangements and songwriting. For example, it was Carlos that came up with the guitar riff to Bowie's first and only number one single, Fame, a song he also wrote with some guy named John Lennon. And that's barely scratching the surface of what Carlos Alomar has achieved during his legendary career. This is a guy who would play with Paul McCartney, James Brown, Chuck Berry, the Bee Gees, Luther Vandross, Alicia Keys, Iggy Pop, Duran Duran, Benny King, Bruce Springsteen, Simple Minds, The Pretenders, The Main Ingredient, Joe Simon, Cyndi Lauper, Mick Jagger, and hundreds more. Altogether, he's been involved in 32 gold or platinum records, countless tours, and has become one of the most respected musicians in history. The bottom line, Carlos Alomar is one of the most gifted, sought-after, and respected musicians in the world. And somehow, for whatever reason, he's joining me today on the podcast. This is my conversation with the incredible Carlos Alomar on Backsea's Musical Podcast. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you fine.
Hallelujah. and the angels sang. All right. Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. It's great to see you. I've been a big fan for an awful long time, so it's a real pleasure to finally get a chance to meet you.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Before we start, I've been going through this recent blast of David Bowie related interviews. A couple weeks ago, I talked to George Murray, and I know he doesn't do a lot of interviews, but he was just so cool, and what a really nice, warm-hearted guy.
We call him a sweetheart.
He really is, and it's funny as I'm stumbling around researching him, and I'm researching you. It's like you are like the Kevin Bacon of guitar. You're 6 degrees of separation from anyone who's ever played music ever. Your resume, even beyond David Bowie, is so rich and full. You must feel in a real sense how blessed you are to have the career and the relationships that you've built over time.
The fact that you can use the word blessed is exactly the point. Sometimes, karmically speaking, we have no idea why things happen. For instance, I don't have anybody's telephone number. How did these people reach me? I never asked what the 6 degrees of separation. Who gave you where did you get the reference from? Why does the phone keep I just walked through the door yesterday to find out Tina Turner died and broke down.
Yeah.
We have all these connections to people that we meet. If I don't record with them, I've toured with them. If I haven't toured with them, they were our opening act and we bonded with them. It's like the situation where I get called in to do a Latin job playing cuatro. Or Cyndi Lauper calls me in to play mandolin, or I'm singing with Simple Minds. You're getting these credits that are like, I play bass with Scissor Sisters. It's like, And I keep everything on the down low because I don't need credit because my situation is just what you mentioned. If you want to be happy, learn gratitude. And in being grateful, there is no, I'm not bragging. I'm not a braggart. I don't have an ego. I like to laugh.
Well,
And that's about it. Keep life simple.
yeah. Well, I almost wondered if you've ever said no to anything.
My odyssey is just that I teach people very much so just that. What would happen if you say yes to everything? Life in itself is an odyssey, and we should really be privileged to be able to carry that odyssey. Sometimes it's given to us as a legacy, but that's not our walk, really. We're just walking the walk.
Yeah.
Once we find out who we are, that's what our trip starts. So, yeah, life is an odyssey. And so, if you say yes to everything, then you have inherently what we would call, I guess, valor. Nobody understands those qualities of virtue. I'm not talking about courage, where you get backed up against the wall and you kick an animal's ass in a minute. But the ability to say yes
Yeah.
means that curiosity leads. And when curiosity, you know what? You want to stay young? Stay curious.
Yeah.
Don't touch that oven. I'm going to touch that oven. Don't turn that corner. Oh, I'm going to turn that corner. And when you find out what's there, then you'll decide whether you want to turn that corner or touch that oven again.
Well, you bring up gratitude. I've always been a big believer in that. It's hard to be positive about anything or have a good outlook on life unless you have that ability to be grateful for the things that have come your way. And like you said, without saying yes to things, you miss out on opportunities that you may regret later on. Opportunities that may really be profound and life changing. And you're a guy who's had that time and time again.
I find that one of my greatest experiences while touring and doing all these things is meeting people. And even superstars, although you might think of them in their aura of excellence, they're just people, man. They fuck up, they have a great time. But what I'm looking for in life, I think I'm looking for a belly laugh. I'm tired of the tee hee hee. I'm tired of the chuckles. I'm tired of the laughing in your hand. I want to throw back my head and give a good belly laugh. Now let me ask you something, Michael. How many people can give you a good belly laugh?
There are quite a few, actually.
Then you're a rich man.
I'm quick with a laugh. I'm not. I won't suppress that very often. That's for damn sure. You mentioned the death of Tina Turner this week, and I think that surprised everybody. You did play with her, or you spent time with her?
Well, funny, there's a story I can tell you. We had to do the Tonight album, and that was with Tina Turner. David had hooked up a session with her, and he was extremely nervous to meet her. Um, One of the things that we share in common is that I'm a Buddhist, as well as my wife Robin, and Tina Turner is a Buddhist. And so David was, uh, you got to be there. You got to be there, Carlos. I'm really nervous, and we're gonna have dinner, and you got to be there, and you can talk to her and all that Buddhism stuff, and blah 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 blah. So you meet these people under certain circumstances, and honestly, they are private moments that you share and with your loved ones. They're not kind of, yes, we tell the story, but it's not the story, it's the sentiment that you feel when you're there. It's like one of those, you got to be there. The nervousness that Tina had, the nervousness that David had, and yet when they kicked it, first of all, David loved Tina. I mean, when he found out that was like, I mean, there's certain places where you reach nirvana on earth, and she was so sweet. She's just a very sweet person and very, very humble. And it's amazing to see someone who has gone through so much and shown an example of excellence as far as her conduct is concerned, and courage. Again, the valor that we talked about. To be able to run and still live.
Yeah.
So they were both in awe of each other. And you know what? After that, camaraderie set in, and that's it. Best friends for life.
And like you said, you talk about the gratitude aspect of it. Has there ever been anyone that was more grateful of her situation than a Tina Turner, considering what she had been through and then what she would do with her life once she had the ability to control her own actions? I mean, it's a remarkable testament to exactly what you just talked about.
Yeah, look, the humanity of it all is but the example. Blah, blah, blah is blah, blah, blah. But for you to take your life, reconstruct your life, and still emerge as yourself, oh my God, that's
Amazing.
God. That's godlike, if anything else. You know, to the pursuit of happiness, that's Tina Turner.
Yeah.
And if anybody can show you that, come on. Hey, truth, justice, and the American way. Right.
Yeah, I found myself getting really interested in your beginnings here because as I'm reading it, you start guitar at the age of 10. You go through some personal things with your family. Your dad died at the age of 14, and then suddenly, out of this situation, the guitar winds up being your salvation in a pretty profound way. And then within a couple of years, you're joining the house band of the Apollo Theater before you're even old enough to graduate high school. To me, that's just a remarkable. I don't know if you just dedicate yourself to the craft of learning how to play guitar or what it is. Tell me about those early years and how the connection for music for you was important.
Okay, I'll start out with a phrase, and that'll kind of blanket everything else.
Okay.
Passion wakes you up in the morning, and passion won't let you go to sleep at night.
That's interesting.
Okay, so as a young kid, you learn three chords because you got this instrument. The instrument is horrible, a Stella guitar. The action was so high. It was like playing a damn Kyoto or something. Anyway, you get this instrument, you know three chords. But your father tells you, okay, look, there's responsibility and obligation. Responsibility, you get a guitar, you better learn how to play it. Okay, obligation. Now you're the only musician in church. No matter what song you came, I played G, C, and D. I don't care what key you're singing in. You better conform to my three chords, or else you're gonna be out of tune. Anyway, that amount of again valor, courage, to just do it. And then my father allowed me to go and buy something in a music store. He would have thought I bought a book, like you said, of instruction, blah blah blah. Man, I saw Mel Bay Guitar Dictionary, 1,200 chords. Dude, so I do three chords, man. Three chords. When I learned that, that was it. I developed an ear because I wanted to learn how to supplement these chords. And so you hear about these kids that don't have any musical training, but they have a real good ear. When you learn all these things, and suddenly you have a million amateurs stepping up to the microphone, and the people in church, they don't have a key. They just sing. And me, I'm trying, okay, what key are they in? I have to find it. I was jamming the minute I learned those 1,200 chords. I was about to use all of them. And so in doing that, I developed this technique of playing what we call rhythm lead. And that I learned it from Jimi Hendrix. And the reason was Jimi Hendrix had big fingers, and his thing was if one finger is loose, I could do a lot of damage with that one finger. And so when I would play a chord, any loose finger that was there would be playing lead on top of it. They call it leading tones. Anyway, that's the way I started. And so when I was recruited into listen to my brother as a ensemble that was being developed by the Apollo Theater, this young troupe of about 16 singers represented the Apollo Theater in all events. So during all the Harlem riots of '65 and things like that, we were at Marvis Garvey Park, playing, stand up and, you've got to make a stand somewhere. You got to stand up. I mean, and we were writing our own materials. You had to do skits to introduce the song. Everything. We had to go to the Laroque Bay dancers to learn African dancing. I mean, I'm Puerto Rican. There's no water. What the hell am I doing? Anyway, all of these things are a form of education that are given to us by the epitome of professionalism, the Apollo Theater. I mean, imagine having people like, Red Fox come down to give you advice. Flip Wilson comes down to tell you blah, blah, blah. Nancy Wilson comes down to congratulate you and tell you what a great thing and what we had to do choreography. Our homework, go upstairs and watch the Temptations do their dancing. I was so good that the guy that plays the piano, George Stubbs, an elderly gentleman, he had a Farfisa organ. He said, "Carlos, you want to play with me a little bit after hour joins?" Yeah, sure, hell yeah. Listen, I want you to learn the top 10 and learn the bass part, the guitar part, and all the horn parts. This way, if he has a Farfisa organ, he has the right hand and the bass on the left. If he didn't feel like playing the left hand, he can just play his solo. And I had a good ear, so I would hear the top 10, I would learn them, and I didn't need any music. And then you get called in, the same guy. Hey man, I need you for the amateur hour. Okay. Now I'm about 15, 16 years old. This is like I'm the youngest guitar player. I used to be in the basement. The guitar player from Reuben Phillips Orchestra, who backs all the major singers, they needed a sub. Who did they call?
Let me.
But remember, I wasn't part of the union, and that was the union house, local 802. So they used to hide me until the union man, because the union man would come around, cards. You have to show them your union card, make sure you're paid up to date. And they would hide me, and then I would come up. So yeah, that's where I met James Brown, who also needed a substitute. During those years, I got called into what was it called? Rye Playland to work with Chuck Berry. You remember when they used to have the live performances?
Sure.
What the hell? It's crazy.
So I mean, you're a teenager as this is happening, and you're in one of the most famous musical theaters in the world, in the Apollo. I mean, how did you go through that and not be intimidated by that situation? I mean, James Brown, Chuck Berry, these guys were legendary at the time that you were a teenager. How did you manage yourself through that at such a young age?
You got to remember, it wasn't about them. It was about me. Who the hell are they? Think about it.
It's true.
I know,
Yep.
I know names, but I'm 16 years old, dude. Come on, don't make me think like a 20-year-old or 25 or 72. No, 16-year-olds are like, thank you very much, sir. I mean,
So
think about it. Come on, I'm a kid. A lot of people forget I was a kid. But look, I was a kid. And you know who I was surrounded by? Oh, Luther Vandross on this side, the singer, Robin Clark, over here, Nile Rodgers over there trying to get my gig, Dennis Davis over there playing jazz with. And through those connections, I need a guitar player, hey, I'm playing with this guy. I know this guy, Carlos.
your association with the two people that you just mentioned, Luther Vandross, who was one of your best friends, and I think you became kind of close to Robin too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
I locked her down when I was 18, and I mean, you know what? When you find the true love, and she's a singer, and she was already making money doing commercials. Hey, hey, hey.
But you're not just talking just any singers. I mean, Robin and Luther are like, I mean, just unbelievably brilliant vocalists. To be in that environment with that much talent, I mean, tell me what it was like to be hanging out with those guys.
You know something? Excellence rises to the top, I think, and even in a group, you find out who it is that you're attracted to based on their due diligence and I think excellence. And that being said, they just gravitate towards each other. It doesn't, like minds, that kind of thing. Look, we know full well that talent has a lot to do with everything. But another thing is personality. When
Right.
it comes to music, musicians have to be portraying their music through their personality. And so what we find is the minute they hit the last note, look, musicians are weird. They play, they don't even have to know each other. They play, and the minute they hit the last note, taran tan taran tan rum. They start cackling like hens and laughing. Why? We just had a good old time. That's all it takes. And look, you don't have to be the best singer, but if you gave to the whole and the whole became right, then that's who you get when you want that sound. If I've got a soprano, I don't need another soprano. I ain't looking for another soprano. But if I find an alto, oh, I'm going to chase her. I need an alto. And if the alto that I have messes up, then I know who the second alto is going to be. You see? So again, it's
Yep.
like one of those things. For musicians, it's rather odd. Here's an example. Let's say I have a Rolodex or a telephone book full of numbers. Man, if you need a bass player, even if my brother is a bass player, I'm going to give you the number of the best player that I know so that I could look good. And you owe me a favor.
There, that's the isn't that the way it is? Isn't that the
It
way it
is the
always
way
is?
it is.
Yeah.
Sorry about that,
Well,
boys.
yeah, I've done a couple of interviews with the musicians, and one of the things that a number of them have said is you don't last long in music if you're an asshole.
Oh man.
You just don't, and that like is a metastasizing situation where once you start acting like a jerk, it follows you everywhere.
Life is like that.
Yeah.
They won't tell you, but they won't sustain you when you fall. They'll watch that fall and just go, there he goes. Let me push him while he's down. Go faster. Go away. It's the same everywhere. It
Yeah.
doesn't really have to do with musicians. It's just the way it is. I mean, we are human, and although people give us the accolades for our excellence, again, once you meet them, like you said, if you're an asshole, your music doesn't count anymore.
Right.
In fact, I'm not buying any more of your records. I might destroy the ones I have. So again, it's only human. We're trying to make it something it's not.
It's true. I mean, there's no denying that. So the early '70s, so suddenly you're becoming like a sought after session museum. I saw a great video the other day you playing with the Main Ingredient, which I thought was awesome on the Midnight Special. They're all dressed in suits and you're in the back. Just
What an afro! Oh my God! It was a
yes, it was.
football.
I wasn't going to point that out, but it was
Sign of
just,
the times, man. Sign of the times.
I totally understand that. But eventually, as you're going through these sessions, you wind up being called for a session to play with Lulu, and David Bowie is producing those sessions. Tell me about that and the conversations between you that ultimately led to you joining him in Young Americans.
Well, the Lulu sessions in themselves, I think, were not the reason. I think that the Lulu sessions showed him that I was able to immediately cope with a song that he already knew. And so when I started playing it, I was adding a flavor that was kind of nice. Because look, when you're doing a cover of your own song, you know what you hear in your mind's ear. So when someone embellishes it in a way that you hadn't heard, it will impress you. But again, it has nothing to do with talent. Many guitar players could have done equally as well. But when I tell you, man, you look like shit, you need to eat. It's not about David Bowie. It's about Carlos Alomar. Who the hell tells a person that you look like shit? I didn't say, hey, you're a little thin. You should really, I mean, he was 98 pounds, orange hair, and pasty white skin. Like you said, I'm a guy with an afro, probably wearing a dashiki. So, when worlds collide,
Right.
The thing was, I told him, you need to eat. Why don't you come to my place? I lived in Queens. The fact that he would actually come to Queens, man, was I chasing him or was he chasing me? Who the hell goes out to Queens? Hello,
Right.
Queens, dude. All right, he comes out to Queens. Oh my God, he wants to know exactly like you.
Yeah.
Chuck Berry, what was it like? James Brown, Main Ingredient, the Apollo Theater, Harlem. Dude, I want to know everything. I'm like, Spiders from Mars, England. I love your accent. My wife, would you like another piece? Some more rice, Mr. Bowie? That is what does it. Of course, when he got there, I had my pedals and everything. Remember I told you I had learned the whole Jimi Hendrix album.
Right.
You heard me as a type of guitar player that can play sweet stuff and put a little R&B to your music. But then I hook up my stuff, my big muff, and I could play the full Jimi Hendrix album by myself. He knew I could rock it.
Yeah.
The disguise of being everybody, Carlos Alomar, the Funk Meister, they don't know jack shit, all right? If I got out there and played a quattro or a mandolin or viola, my first instrument, I mean, he's meeting me thinking that I'm R&B in the Apollo, and yet here I am playing Jimi Hendrix like I wrote it. And so we had a great time, and I think that is the human experience that bonded us, not necessarily through music, but through the act of learning who we are in essence and realizing I need that essence. Your humor is exemplary, and you are fucking crazy, Carlos. You are too, David. Me and David, there are those moments where you know what's happening when it's not what you said above breath, it's what you say
Underneath it, right.
And why are you guys always huddled in the corner laughing? David and I laugh a lot
Yeah.
because the humor intensity that we have, we know what we want, we know what we need, and we know how to get it, and we know how to say it.
You know,
And so that's how we bonded. I don't think it really should be attributed to music. Later on, music holds us together as the challenges that we face, we meet together, and it reinforces musically our dependency. But it was always an issue of the humanity of David and myself.
I've heard that time and time again from other people that have worked with him. I interviewed Adrian Belew a while back, and he didn't spend a long time with David, but certainly enough to get to know him. And they worked together later on in Adrian's career, and he kind of said the same thing. It's like the image that people had of David Bowie was that he was a distant type of guy, but once you got to know him, as an individual, this artifice came down, and what you found out that he was just a very warm, friendly, hilarious, loyal guy, and it's kind of cool to hear that from your heroes, that you realize, okay, like you said, they are human beings, and the people that are closest to him kind of repeat the same thing. So there's got to be great truth to those kinds of comments about him.
We should always remember that, like we always said here, there's a human element to all this. We mustn't forget that. Even David, all of us, Tina, myself, it doesn't matter. And by that I mean this. We can judge David's personality because as a Capricorn, he's calculated, he's extremely intelligent, and he will not be caught in an implemented trap. That being said, we can now look at his personality as we see him doing interviews and facing the public and realize that he comes totally intact, and you will not be putting any holes in that ship and sinking it anytime soon. That ability for him to calculate his essence and his presence on screen or wherever he is very important because that's the nature of his personality. But now we must talk about his character. Character is what we're really, really trying to define.
I think one of the things that really speaks volumes about his character is, at the time, there were very, very few mainstream Caucasian artists out there that were intentionally playing with people of color. It wasn't necessarily, I don't know if it was necessarily racist, but just wasn't even a real consideration. Here he is. He's already like the biggest pop star in the world, and he's putting together this incredible band with you and Dennis Davis and George Murray, and creating maybe one of the greatest rhythm sections that's ever been assembled. And I think it's important for people to understand that he was doing that at a time when not a whole lot of people were acknowledging the fact that white and black and Hispanic people can play together and do it the right way. Because when I'm listening to Young Americans the other day, and I'm listening to Station to Station and Low, I'm thinking, Jesus, this is the biggest, greatest funk band I think there's ever been. And it's all because David had the kind of, he was open enough and welcoming enough to allow that to happen and allow you guys to play the way you played. Did you feel that he was doing something pretty remarkable as far as diversity was concerned, or was that not really a consideration based upon your personal relationship with the guy?
We must remember that we can't separate the two. We'd be fools to think that one is an absolute. Look, we can start this conversation by saying what's in a name. That's all there is to it. David Bowie had, David Bowie had the Spiders from Mars. All right, the Spiders from Mars is a great trade name. Who was in the Spiders from Mars? A lot of people might not know that answer. Maybe Ronson might stick out a little bit, maybe. But quite honestly, it is the brand of the Spiders from Mars that really takes the forefront, always in conversation, and we get that. What's in a name? David Bowie now has found, and I'm going to label this one under sound and vision. The sound is a very, very important sound. Here's why. David Bowie took a black rhythm section to Europe, had them record stuff in Europe, and then import it back into America. That's really weird. David Bowie finds this rhythm section and keeps them with them forever. Nobody mentions them And yet you're right. You have got one of the most powerful. He wanted Kraftwerk essence. He wanted metronome. He wanted electronica. He wanted a sound. He wanted precision. He wanted a lot of things. And when he found, just like me, I can flip on a dime, I've got a great ear, Dennis Davis can do a roll with one hand. Dennis Davis can play 25 drums and not have a problem with hitting each one in a song. George Murray is a lead guitar player that plays bass. You have got now this funk rhythm section that is amazing, and you can't tell what kind of music they are because they do transit. And I'm doing arrangements. These arrangements, if you go from 1 to 4, dun 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 dun, I'm like, what happened to 1 2 3 4? Dun 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 dun. I was able to flip things around. Why? These guys can do anything. And if you throw a little pebble into that lake, the rippling effect at the end is a waves, man. And when that got back to David, David would throw a bone. And when we munched on that bone and gave it back, it was a sculpture. All right. The vision of sound and vision. David had a vision, and that Kraftwerk essence is exactly right. Back in, my daughter said, Dad, you need to start a website. And so I started doing the website, and I thought, carlosalomar.com, if anybody wants to go. And I thought I'd put a little number in there. And so I decided the making of the damn trio. What the hell are you talking about? I actually, in that interview, labeled it Dennis Davis, Carlos Alomar, George Murray, the damn trio. And gave a little story about how funny it was when I said, damn, no, we should make it mad. No, we should. Nobody knows about anything. And yet that one little article gave a name to that trio, the damn trio. Once I did that on my website, every reference that was ever made now became the damn trio. Now, does anybody know George Murray, Dennis Davis, Carlos? They might know Carlos Alomar. We're getting into the same loop as the Spiders from Mars. We now have a name. Even if it's after the fact, it doesn't matter. Recognition has now been given to a band that was playing more albums than the Spiders from Mars, different kind of music than the Spiders from Mars, transformational progressions and aesthetics to music. The Spiders from Mars were a one-trick pony in a one-trick pony world. You cannot morph a band like that into what was needed in the future. It's just not the way it works.
That especially makes sense as you transition from station to station into the Berlin trilogy, Low, Heroes, and the Lodger. What band could pivot like that?
It's the essence of the vision of David Bowie. Look, David Bowie put together the Soul Review show after Diamond Dogs. To huge, of course, we got spit on and called all kind of N-words and all kind of stuff in the beginning, but after that, a huge success. So like a snake that has to grow, you have to shed your skin. He did it once, and then he dropped everybody, just like he dropped the Spiders from us. The fact that he called me back, I'm in shock every time David calls me back. I am grateful. But remember, like you did, when you look at my resume, every time I did one album for David Bowie, I did 3 albums for somebody else. I have got a song playing every year since 1973.
Amazing.
From Alicia Keys to anybody, it just keeps going all the way through. And so the vision of David Bowie to be able to have a fantastic band and still let them go, looking for transitional areas that he can maybe accommodate himself into. That is the vision of David Bowie. The sound of David Bowie is still morphing. You look at all the tribute bands, similar to the ones that we have at the Bowie Convention, the Sons of the Silent Age, the Men Who Fell to Earth. These are cover bands that honor David Bowie because of his ability to be transformational. Remember, if you have to play a set list of David Bowie, man, you better have rock, you better have R&B, you better have funk. Dude, you hear me?
Absolutely.
If you're going to copy David Bowie, and look, which David Bowie as a fan do you really love?
You know, it,
A,
it
a Ziggy fan is not.
it's really hard because as much as I love Ziggy Stardust and as much as I love Aladdin Sane, when I go back and I reach for a Bowie album to listen to, the ones that really have grabbed me over the course of, you know, 20, 30 years, it's Station to Station, it's Low, it's Heroes. It's like, that's like the meat of the David Bowie lineup to me. And I agree with you. Those early records are great, but there's something so remarkably engaging and new and different and powerful than those three albums right there.
It is amazing to think that music is in fact a time capsule. You want better times? Once you put the right record on, you'll be shaking your butt and forgetting all the cares and woes of the world.
Yeah.
You can just lose yourself in your music. You will definitely put yourself in the place of enjoying life the way you used to.
Yeah. I was just
Yeah.
listening to Young Americans the other day. It's like one of those albums that I don't necessarily listen to as much as I should. And when I listened to it again just the other day, I'm like, why am I not listening to this one more often? It's absolutely fantastic. And it's like, it's just so soulful, and the vocals and
They call it sweet soul music for a reason. Don't put on Scary Monsters.
no, not
It's
even,
called Scary Monsters for a reason, man.
yeah.
The trilogy, and we had to like when we got back to David and we had finished that trilogy, we were like, dude, please, no more of those slow songs, man. That's why when you hear Scary Monsters, that's like 100 beats per minute for like the whole thing.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that's why I would never put on the Lodger, for like a romantic night at home. That would not be the first one I would grab. But
Yeah.
it's so interesting to me when you. So, like I told you, there was a video I saw where you guys are playing "Stay" and Adrian Blue is in that band, and there's a point where David he's just sitting back and he is marveling at the band that he has, and he has a certain, you can see it in his face, the amount of gratitude that he has, that he's not only found the right people, but these people are putting in place the exact vision that he's wanted to do during this entire period of his career. That whole Berlin trilogy is so important, for him artistically, because he has worked his way up to have enough clout that he can do whatever experimentation he wants to do, and he nails it. But he wouldn't have been able to do that without that caliber of musicianship helping him do it. And I think that says a lot about how he feels about you professionally, and bringing you into a world that's got Tony Visconti and Robert Fripp and Brian Eno, and that these are additional pieces, but the basic core are these three guys playing the rhythm section.
One of the things that happens as a band leader is that you have to understand who the soloist is and who the invited guest is. These are very important aspects. And we learn this in jazz and all that stuff only because you have to accommodate the soloist and the progressions that he's going to give you. When you have a rhythm section like us, when we start playing something, it's like the James Brown thing. Hit me, boom. The minute you make a move, we're going to hit that and accent that in the music. So as a power trio, when we are playing with each other and what they consider rehearsing something, we're not just rehearsing something, we're finding out where the hits are. And now, if David just feels like doing one of those crazy choreographed gestures, and he finds out that when he goes, hey, and he hears that clang, he's like, okay, let me see if I can't test these boys. Hey! And he'll be trying to, just like James Brown. Except you see, James Brown did it because every time he did it, if you didn't do it, he would fine you. David Bowie didn't fine you. But he found that with that type of situation, this rhythm section can follow and not lose a stride. So when you have Adrian Blue and David Bowie says, okay, I've done my part, take it, boys, he's going to step back because he doesn't know what the fuck we're going to do. And so don't you think that is the most, and look, we're not playing the same. Can you play that solo that you played last week? Are you out of your mind? I don't even know what the hell I did, let alone replicate it. Come on. And so all these moments on stage are golden moments. You can record what you want in Amsterdam, but don't think you're going to get the same thing when we hit London.
Yeah.
You can hear a solo in one place, but when you see it live, it's not going to be the same. I mean, it's impossible. We just don't work like that. Why? If we feel like doing something as the rhythm section, Adrian Blue would pick up on it and say, "Oh no, you tricky buggers, you're not going to catch me like that. I can catch you," and then he'll hit me back with something else. And you see, this type of play comes, and when what do you see on stage? These fools are smiling and carrying on like the audience doesn't exist.
So it's almost no wonder when you nail it, you like you say, all you can do is laugh about it because it's just it's I don't know if it's a relief that it's over, or just it's just a release of that moment.
Well, let me give you the word. You're struggling. It's called joy. You have to remember, happiness is not just happiness. Rapture is not just rapture. Joy is all of these different things that we hear about, but you got to understand, a giggle is not a belly laugh. Joy is something that you reach. I wasn't aiming for it, but man, when we hit it, we didn't know. We passed through fire, and at the end, all right, we didn't get burned. Man, will we do it again? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what tomorrow brings.
So I was listening to another interview that you had done, and I know you explained this a bunch of times about the song "Fame," and that was David's first #1 hit, and in spite of what the rumors and the mythology may be about this song, they both David and John Lennon basically wind up getting credited for what really is a Carlos Alomar solo song. But
Mhm.
but tell me about that. You're in a room with David and John Lennon. You come up with something for these guys. Say, hey, listen to this, and all of a sudden, that moment leads to one of the biggest hits of his career. Tell me about the reality of that situation with Fame.
All right. Fame was actually foot stomping. And we did that, and you can see that I think on the Dick Cavett show, one of those, and we did it on tour. You could also see it there. Some songs do not truly translate into when you record them. They just end up being flat, and that's a very odd thing because sometimes it's in the wrong key, and it's just a flat key.
Yeah.
Some things just don't replicate themselves the way you thought they would when you record, even if you play the same way. It just goes on too long, and it's the same thing, and it's just. David had already done it on stage, and when he recorded it, he kind of lost his flavor for it. I mean, it happens. And you know what? We record a lot of songs that don't end up on the album. Sometimes they get canned, and you see them on a new re-release of the album. So let's not forget, there's a lot of material that we did that don't see the light of day. Anyway, that was discarded and put on the side. Later on, after we finished the actual album, we get together in Electric Lady. And what David has done is chopped it up so that it basically has what we call a blues format, 1-4-5-4. Anybody, if you just look at it that way, it's the same. And so what we end up with is drums and bass. That is the essence of what was there when this all came down. Let's not confuse all the guitars and all that other stuff. There is nothing there but boom, 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 boom. I felt like I was playing Louie Louie. Louie Louie. Um, the same progressions, BB King, everybody. So basically, David is looking at a blues song. So for him to call me up to do a blues song, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. All right. But there's no guitar. Lennon comes in and basically just strums a little blues, dude. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's okay, but it's just strumming. It's just the participation of him being there that's most important.
Yeah.
But he puts his head down and in the booth, he kind of breathes. We put down the tracks, and suddenly we kind of like, I hear something, and once we isolate the track, we find him kind of. So that kind of thing happens, and David swears he says fame. Now let's understand something a little bit more important than all of that. I know nothing about the writing. I do the music. There's always an author and a composer.
Right.
I'm the composer. I'm the guy that does the music. When it comes to the words, don't even think that that's not David. It's always David. All right. So let's
Right.
understand. Any participation that he gives us is another thing altogether. So how the words came out, whether he gave him credit for all that, that's not on me. Ask anybody. But when it comes to the music, I heard what they did, and I already had some thoughts because remember, it's just the blues. Robin had worked with a band. I have to go sideways now. Robin had worked with a band called Full Moon.
Okay.
Full Moon had a guitar player called Buzzy Feeden. He played on, I think, Superwoman by Stevie Wonder. I mean, excellent. One of my superheroes. He's one of them.
Okay.
He had a song called Jungle Walk with the Rascals. That I learned that song like I learned all Jimi Hendrix. And there were certain components to that song that, as a blues player, and like any guitar player, you grab a little bit of this, you grab a little bit. There's a song called "You Can Call Me Rover" with the main ingredient that had that, and I took a little bit from that. There's of course the slapdown I got from James Brown when I thought I was the only guitar player, and there were three guitar players, and I'm over there overplaying like crazy. The dude is like, young blood, slow down, pick apart, don't disturb the groove, and I need three guitar parts. I got all this stuff going on in my head. I'm awed because here comes David Bowie, May Pang, and John Lennon. That's who came. Who was in the room. There was nobody else. No
Right.
matter what you hear anywhere
That was
else.
it. Okay.
And Harry Maslin. They finished and they're all nice. It was cool. You participated. Excellent. Let's go get something to eat. Carlos, you want to come? Let's have dinner. Man, I was hearing those other two guitar parts, man. And I had to tell David Bowie and John Lennon, I hear something, David. I'd rather stay here and put this down, and I'll catch you guys later. Which I never did. They left. Once that door closed, I looked at Harry and said, "Okay, man, let's get to work." And then I started layering and layering and layering, just like James Brown. I've laid down the first part. I like it. Don't touch anything. Lay down the second part. I don't need this. Get rid of that. And the next thing you know, all these interlocking parts. And because I left all the holes, when David Bowie came back and he heard this funky, mysterious, creepy, and look, they always told me when you're playing funk music, don't disturb that groove, man. If I lay a pocket down, don't go playing stuff and filling up the holes and killing my pocket. That song has such a heavy pocket in it.
Huge pocket.
Huge pocket. And when you heard that, it was like, oh shit, oh man, oh, what the hell is that? Coming from a white guy? I'm talking about, and wait a minute, who was on the radio? The captain and Tennille?
Yeah. Right.
Hello, let's not forget the sign of the times, man. And now you're on Soul Train, dude. Come on.
It.
The fame, the fact that I got credit for it is just honoring David Bowie once again.
Yeah.
He was this young kid. Look, David Bowie was what, 5 years older than me. I mean, we were friends at that point, and so for him to give me credit, I was like over the top. It made my life, and so remember, I was already married, and so when you meet a married couple that's so young, we're Buddhists, we got it together. We don't need anybody. I turned David Bowie down 3 times. I mean, when you turn somebody down, they really want you. And you know what? There's respect there.
Yeah.
I always knew what I call, you must know the value of your worth. And you have to make sure that you don't compromise your own self-worth for something that's not really aspirational enough to sustain you. I mean, basically, I'm saying don't sell your soul to the devil, man.
Right. Well, and that's a really good point. I mean, how many other people in general will kind of acquiesce to other pressures and take themselves out of what makes them great or what or their strength and just does it because somebody else wants them to. Whereas with you, he's given you the chance to express yourself like in fame. I mean, there are many artists who would say, "No, I let's wait till I come back because I'm the key to this whole thing." When in this situation, he let you hold the keys and you crushed it. I mean, it was a huge hit for him.
Let me show you how much of a big it for me. Luther Vandross swore that funky music was going to be that single. He
Yeah.
knew that David was going to play funky music. You want funky? It says funky music. I mean, he called it fascination. And so, as far as Luther was concerned, his song was going to be the hit and his song. So, when David came, dude, it wasn't a problem, but it was sure challenging for us or for Luther.
Yeah.
And of course, it was David's first #1 hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 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 yeah.
And
I
it's
know, right?
it's a shame that Luther was never able to recover from any of that. Put together
Yeah, I'm
a
so
decent
sorry he
career
had to
for
go
himself.
on to his career. Oh my goodness, his career was
So this convention that's happening in New York, the Bowie World Fan Convention. You're a part of that. There's a bunch of people. Tony Visconti's going to be there. George Murray, obviously, a bunch of other people. What is your role in that? Do you have like a specific thing that you're going to be doing while you're there, or are you just going to be, meeting and greeting and shaking hands while you're there?
Well, I think that it's important for us to say everything. I mean, how could it not be? All
Yeah,
right, look, I think it's important for us to have a tier level situation here because all things are not created equal, even if you want to. So if they offer you a VIP ticket, then the VIP comes with certain luxuries that a VIP ticket should cost. And so the value of the worth of that VIP ticket is evident when you start looking at the greets, the meet and greets, the photo opportunities with real cameras and real lights, and you can get all of these little, but it doesn't stop all of the panel discussions that will be happening with conversations similar to this.
yeah,
Also, question and answer. Let me explain something about the last convention because the first one was in London and it was unbelievable. Oh my God, it was just one of the reasons that we're doing this one is because of that one. And what I will explain to the fan base is very simple. We're older.
mm,
Young kids want to know stupid shit. Old people want to justify their lives. Old people want to know that it was worth it for them to be 60 and still be able to go to a Bowie ball with a damn lightning bolt on their face. There's a pride of ownership of who your culture is that you can take a Bowie ball even when you're an elder and be in there with the young kids too.
yeah,
There's a certain question that has a more spiritual bent to it that you can ask to know about David's spiritual aspect. Did he ever talk to you? There's so many questions that you want to have as a person of age to justify your reason for having held this banner up for so long. And one of the things that I find at this time in my life, I'm older. I have acquired a certain amount of wisdom that allows me to ponder instead of think. And to be able to disseminate all this information and explain it in a way that shows the humanity of David Bowie through my eyes.
yeah,
Also, it allows you to connect the dots. We don't know who David Bowie could possibly be unless you find out who his associates were. Nobody knows me. And yet they now can reach me and touch me and realize who I am and the essence of what it was like for David Bowie to be speaking to Carlos Alomar. And what type of feedback, now that you've heard Carlos Alomar, what type of feedback and conversation did those two people have?
I can only
You have
imagine. Yeah,
you have met Brian Eno and seen how he speaks and the way that is not a thinker. He ponders heavily as I do. You listen to him and you wonder what kind of damn conversations could they have had to eat. You listen. I don't have. There's two sides of the glass. On this side, Carlos Alomar speaks to David Bowie about music and the like. On the other side of the glass, he speaks to Tony Visconti about the production value of everything that's coming at them. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They have no idea what the hell I'm talking about.
right.
This is where we begin the vision that we talk about David Bowie. Mini sessions. Have the rhythm section rehearse everything that they're going to do over there.
Yeah,
And then have the vocalist with the piano do something over here with the soloist. And then you put them together and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Brian Eno will do 24 tracks of amazing material and then call me in and only let me hear 2 tracks. And then he says, listen, I want you to play from 52 to 97. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then you don't hear a click, you hear 3, 4, 96, 97. And then I hear this. Da, 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 da. What the fuck is that? All right. Stop. Now I have no relevance to anything that's going on. I don't know what the hell it's a part of. And then after I finish playing what I'm playing, then they bring up all 24 tracks. And now I'm submerged in this holy shit moment. What the hell is
Wow.
that?
Amazing.
The parts equal the whole, but you must not let everyone hear the whole for fear that they'll start jamming on top of it. Control your environment to control the outcome, and then edit that.
That's
The,
that.
the choices are amazing when you look at the methodologies that you learn and how you piggyback those methodologies based on the people that can give you what you want. If it doesn't work this way, he's got 15 different methodologies to mess with you, to give you something that'll take you out of your comfort zone, but keep the talent, and then come up with something that he says, that's what I wanted. And you go, what?
That's
Okay.
amazing. That's
Okay,
amazing.
thanks. I'm done. Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you, like, one more thing, because at the end of his career, David released his final album, Black Star, and I know you did not play on that album, but when I heard it, and I got it almost immediately, it came out, and I think he died 2 or 3 days after that. When I heard it for the very first time, I felt goosebumps over my entire body. I've never heard an album that I think affected me the way that one did. I think I got to know David Bowie better in that album than maybe any other album that he had ever released. I assume that you've probably have heard it or have gone through it. You have not. You've never heard Black Star.
I heard a song or two.
Yeah.
I have never tried to put that album on to this day.
Why is that?
I don't want to hear it. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear the end. I don't want to know the end. I don't want to hear the end. I don't want to see the end. There is no end in my mind's eye. And so I like commas. I don't need periods. And so I'd rather let the continuation of that paragraph finish in my mind and then hear any words that might solidify a thought or anything that I might see that might bring me sadness.
Yeah.
And so I would prefer to keep the image the way that I control than to let that overlay and totally demolish every feeling that I've already accommodated to sustain his the fact that he's gone.
Yeah.
So for me to listen to the album would put a period on everything, and it's not necessary for me right now. And so I'll keep that little box closed, and there will be a day that I'll need to open it.
Yeah.
But there's needs and wants, and I've learned how to control my wants.
It's a remarkable answer. I thank you for that, because it makes, as a fan and someone who, as just a fan, I know how profound it was for me. But then to keep that door open for all of us who loved what he did and what he did with you specifically, that was really good to hear. So thank you for that. That was really, I appreciate that answer, maybe more than if you said, "Oh yeah, I love that album from top to bottom." That was actually a better answer. So thank you.
I think that a lot of the albums we love them for their time, but there is no best, really. There's only better.
Yep.
And so every album is as good as it gets until the next album. I mean, we can't foresee the future. And so everything will be fantastic and the best for 1974 and the best for 1975. So there is no best. There is only better.
Yeah.
And even better is subjective. So everybody has their albums, everybody has their Bowie, and everybody has their epoch or their era or their time. The Odyssey continues.
Carlos, this has been a real joy to talk to you and to
Did
share
you
this
say
stuff with you.
joy?
I said joy, and my gratitude level is exploding. There's no other way to put it. So thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you. You know, I continue the legacy of David. You know, I'm a professor now
Yeah.
because of the work that I did with Brian Eno and David during that time really impacted on me. So I got an honorary Bachelor of Arts degree at Stevens Institute of Technology, and I became the Distinguished Artist in Residence. And I opened up the Sound Synthesis Research Center for the Performing Arts. It's basically this gigantic playground of like and I got Brian Eno's strategy cards framed on, all over the place for the students. And I formed this little orchestra called the Mini MIDI Magic Orchestra. And it's like synthesizing, and the counterpart to organic instruments. You play guitar, synthesizer guitar. You play piano, synthesizers, of course.
Right.
EWI for the horn players, electric. Everything is MIDI. Man, it's important for us to go to underserved community centers. It's important for us to go to old folks' home. You know what it's like for old folks to see a guitar playing Mozart or playing string? It's like the first time they saw the Model T or the television. It's important for us to give back, to replenish, children's centers where you can just, any instrument that you play for a recovering child is going to be appreciated not only by the child, but by the parents, by the nurses, and by the staff, that you would take the time to help their recovery. Music heals. And so all of these things that happen to me, we must give back for the humanity of music. It's music is an art form, but it does take the shape of sound. And this issue of the art form of it has to be given and appreciated by the masses. So as a kid, I understood the power of music. And so that particular legacy, we string it through all the other artists that we can because they pay us and they pay us well. But in all that pain, we need to kind of be human, give it back, and enjoy the true pleasure that music can bring when it's free.
Yeah. Carlos, thank you so much. I appreciate the time today. Take care of yourself. Carlos Alomar will be appearing at the David Bowie World Fan Convention in New York later this month. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to like it, share it, tell all your friends about it. Thanks to Z&M Home Builders for their help. You can help them by going to their website, znmhomes.com. You can follow me on all the socials and reach me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to know what you think. And thanks again for listening to Baxy's Musical Podcast.